Hello, Penguin. Hello. Hello there, Soifel. Hello, hello. Hello, 11. Okay. So I hope everybody's doing fine. Um, I think, as usual, I'm going to get something to drink. Then, uh, yeah, I think this is the plan. Uh, and maybe fix a bug in Z. There we go. Test. Yeah, I saw it. Although the chat tab in my YouTube UI is bugged out. It doesn't load. Something went wrong, and then there's a monkey with a hammer. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Give me 5 minutes, and then we start. Okay, I'm done. Hello, everybody. Let's see. So, 80 Proto, you can use it just as a preloading KB store plus blob storage. Yeah, I guess so. Um, I mean, I believe that in practical terms, the way this would work is that you need to find somebody who is willing to act as a personal data server for you, um, which there are, I believe. And then, yeah, you use them as storage. Um, but I suspect that any such service that realizes it's being abused a little bit will kick you out, I suspect. Hello, Quint. So, yeah, there's that. So what else? Well, okay, so here's the plan. Let me reply to a couple issues. So come with me. We're going on a writing adventure. It's not gonna be a particularly long adventure. I was just in the middle of helping somebody on the Zig website, like making edits to the Zig website, and I have a Zine issue that I want to reply to. Then after that, we can start taking a look at radical.dev. And then one of the issues that I've received hinted at a bug in Zine. It's not like like nothing horrible, but it is a thing that it is a blocker for somebody who, more specifically in this case, what happens is that apparently, if you put links in the footnotes, those don't get analyzed correctly by Zine. So it's a missing thing. It shouldn't be too hard um, to fix. I also have a vague memory that something like this happened in the past. So I wonder if I just failed to fix it in the past, or it just happened to be something vaguely related, and I'm not remembering well enough. In any case, there's that. So there's that bug in Zine for sure. But so far so good. The 013 release has been good. I haven't seen any horrible regression, terrible mishappening that has ruined everybody's life. So there's like a minor breaking change here. We moved auto target blank into, so essentially now that we have two options for personalizing SuperMD rendering, I just namespace those under SuperMD. Seemed reasonable. I feel like it wasn't wrong to not do that immediately. But also in hindsight, I did not expect to want to add a second one this quickly. So whatever. The other big breaking change is this. SuperMD documents don't allow you to skip heading levels anymore. So that means that if you have to start your documents with a single £sign title, or rather, you don't have to have a title right away, but the first title that you do put in has to be a single £sign title. And then after that, there can be either another single £sign title, like you essentially close the first one and open a sibling, or you have to have a £2 title, if you will, an H2. You cannot go H1, H3, because that would mess up table of contents. There's just no way of fixing that, as far as I'm aware. And in general, I do think that it is a poor practice to have your content be not organized in a semantically correct way. Now, SuperMD today is not the ultimate champion of content semantics. It starts from Markdown, and Markdown is a mess. So there's that. But we do want to have the content markup language be better than just vanilla Markdown. So we added this restriction. This has made it impossible for you to make messed up table of contents. You don't like even numbers. And well, if you want, there's an escape hatch. You can, for now at least, you can use $sign heading. If you use the $sign heading, you will not be subjected to this restriction. But the thing is, it is like objectively wrong to have a language that is not just like HTML is technically like HTML could technically be semantically structured, but it's you know, it's fighting the windmills. You'll never get anywhere attempting to do that, and ultimately I think it's like just wasted effort. Because the tooling around it will not support you. Like you will not get any or close to any return from your discipline. While hopefully having discipline in SuperMD will be something that I will be able to reward you for by giving you better tooling going forward. One benefit that you're getting already is that it will catch when you skip a level by mistake. I have after adding this check, I have found not that many, but at least a couple situations where I have skipped a level by mistake. And secondly, it also another thing that I noticed is that on some websites, I have some pages that start at H1 and correctly handle H1, and some other pages where H1 is kind of off limits, and so the markdown was starting at H2 deliberately. And it is inconsistent within the same website because one template or one layout, one super HTML layout would be designed in a certain way. Well, the CSS around it essentially would be designed a certain way, and the other one would be generated a different way. And so, like, editing the same website would have these non-written rules that change depending on which kind of content file you were modifying, and that is bad. That should not be this way. So, and ultimately, if you are somebody who does want the markdown content to start at H2, which I think it's reasonable, you have a setting to change the rendering. I do think it's well, I guess you it's a trade-off. You have to choose. Like, do you throw away single pound sign titles, but then the mapping to markdown heading and HTML heading is always trivial, and 2 pound signs equals H2, 3 pound signs equals H3, and that never changes? Or do you complicate a little bit the rendering by adding a switch that might map a single pound sign to an H2 and so forth? But in exchange, you don't throw away single pound sign titles. Like, I think it's really bad to treat Markdown as a pre-processing macro to generate HTML. Yes, your ultimate goal is to generate HTML when you're making a website. But I think that twisting and every single time you twist the Markdown, detracting semantic meaning from the content in order to more tightly drive what happens in the HTML, I think that is bad. That is something that you should have been avoiding. And here's another ultimate benefit from this approach. Now, everybody, how I mentioned, right, that there are cases where people, including me, oh, Low Level TV, hello, thank you for the raid, welcome everybody. Holy shit. Okay, let me introduce people to what we're doing on this stream. So welcome everybody. I wrote a static site generator named Ziggin. It's a pretty fast static site generator. It's inspired by Hugo. So if you're familiar with Hugo and the way that you create, you structure your markdown files inside the content directory, and then you have templates that apply to those. That is the same general idea. It's written in Zig. It's really fast. It is an order of magnitude faster than Hugo. But to be fair, Hugo is already pretty fast, so this is not like a jab at Hugo. But most importantly, it uses a different templating language. I made my own templating language, and it's designed to make it impossible for you to generate malformed HTML. So in Hugo and other static site generators, you tend to do, this kind of stuff with curly braces, and then the templating language is not really aware of what's going on with the HTML. So you're kind of on your own to make sure that everything pans out in the end. Super HTML is well, first of all, it's a language server for HTML, and it's the first language server for HTML that gives you diagnostics for wrong HTML. Because you can write wrong HTML, so you can install it and run it on normal HTML files, and it will tell you, look, these tags don't match. There's you know what? This screenshot is obsolete. These are the old, crappy enum error messages, but now I have like proper sentences. It will tell you also when you put wrong attributes on an element, or when there are missing mandatory attributes on one. And you might think, wait, but isn't HTML free for all? Like nothing is wrong? Well, no, the browser will have like recovery strategies, which are formalized. Like all browsers will recover in the same way. So you see a consistent result, but it's still a mistake that can have weird consequences. For example, if you try to put a div inside of a p element, that is not allowed. But the browser will not show an error. But what the browser will do is pull out the div from the p element. It will essentially split the p element in two and pull out the div. So if you have a CSS rule that tries to apply to a div inside of a p, that's not going to work because the DOM has been modified. Or if you have JavaScript code that is iterating on the DOM and expects to find a div element inside of the p, it's not going to find it because the browser will have pulled it out. So there's a ton of things that you can do wrong with HTML with, annoying consequences. And it's actually nice to have something like this in hand. Obviously, there are limitations because this tool doesn't understand templating languages. So if you're using curly brace templating languages, if you're using JSX, well, JSX is not even HTML, but if you're using, templating, this language server can give you these advanced diagnostics on a final HTML file. So be aware of this limitation, but it is good. So the templating language in my static site generator works like this. It's essentially attributes. So it's valid HTML with special attributes that have logic attached to them. So if you have an empty element and you give it a colon text attribute that contains one of these expressions that get run by the templating language, this front matter piece of information will be put in the middle of the div. There's also if, for example. So if will toggle the body of this of the element on and off depending on what the condition evaluates to. And there's loop. So essentially the normal stuff that you normally have with templating languages, except it's with this is impossible for you. Like it is literally impossible for you to create an HTML output that has like an open tag that never closes. You cannot do that because it is valid HTML from the get-go. So this is my static site generator, and I made a new release where I'm tweaking things. So is this the time when 7zip gets a Zig clone named 7zig? I don't know. Is the fault of browser makers allowing slop that the modern web is so bad? I wouldn't say necessarily browser makers. I would say that the way that HTML is specified is the WHT group, like the people who standardize HTML, which are probably, at least in part, people that make browsers. But it's not the browsers themselves who decide how HTML should be interpreted. There is a standardization body, and they make those decisions. There's definitely a lot of questionable decisions around HTML, but it's hard. So yeah, it is both questionable a lot, but it is also not easy to get right, I think. So this is the state of things. So what am I doing in this stream? In this stream, I am going to um, reply to a couple of issues. I want to try out radical.dev. So as you might or might not know, a while ago Zig moved to Codeberg, and but we're still looking for also other ways to kind of find a solution that really satisfies our needs. And Codeberg, in many ways, is an improvement over GitHub, but it's not perfect either. And there's also this thing where, as of late, at least in the Z community, I've seen this, where a bunch of people have started setting up their own self-hosted Forjo instances. And I think that all these approaches, each and every one of them, comes with some serious downsides. And I think maybe we could strive for something better, at least for those who want to try. I mean, if you're happy with your self-hosted Forjo, obviously keep doing it, keep doing what makes you happy. But I think there is a solid argument for trying to do something different. So part of that exploration is looking at Radical. There's also Tangled. So if anybody wants to talk about this stuff, I'm happy to chat about this, even as I'm doing other stuff. So again, I just need to reply to a couple of issues, and then we're gonna do this thing. But I'm happy to chat about these topics in general in the meantime. What do you think of the recent Zig controversy? I will agree that Rust code is generally so full of unsafe blocks. It's pretty much a lie that Rust is memory safe, but I don't really know about C. So the Zig controversy is... Here's my read on it. Don't take this as an official statement. This is based on what I don't know what it seems from my perspective. So to me, it seems that what happened is, or rather, let me start with the facts. What happened is that Andrew went to a conference named Software Should Work, where he met with I believe the lead creator of SQLite, or in any case, somebody who is one of the core people working on SQLite. Then there was also Philip of C. There was also the HTMX guy, and I don't know, a few other people. It seemed a very cool conference. So there, Andrew spoke with Philip about C, and so that is probably what prompted Andrew to write an issue on the subject. To be clear, Zig has had for a very long time an open issue about having a build mode that removes all undefined behavior. Whether that is achievable or not, maybe in the past would have been, an open question. Like I would imagine, the fact that you open an issue, Richard Heap, yes, creator of SQLite. There you go. Thank you. That's probably the right title. I'm really bad at this, at remembering people's titles. So thank you. So in the past, if you had seen, the fact that you open an issue stating that you want to attempt something doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be able to do it, right? So I could totally see in the past somebody saying, oh yeah, this Zig is on a memory unsafe language, and they have an issue where they would like to have a build mode that removes all undefined behavior, which we call illegal behavior, but setting that aside. You see the issue and you think, well, yeah, sure, they would like to, but they might not be able to achieve that. So you shouldn't take an intention expressed in an issue as a guarantee that will happen. And I mean, nobody does, right? Realistically speaking. What is happening now is that essentially Philip has done the work to create a framework, a set of runtime checks and ways of organizing things that allows for that property, with some with some caveats, because once you get into the weeds of it, you need to have an agreed understanding of what it means to have for something to be illegal behavior or not, and what the limits are of this thing. But the general idea of, well, you just cannot make these things safe, that is wrong. That is absolutely factually wrong. Phil C is a marvel. It really does a lot. The way I think about Phil C is that it's essentially software Sherry. I might not be pronouncing this correctly, but Sherry, Chere, sorry. It's yeah. I guess this would be a good link. In any case, I'll keep pronouncing it Sherry. I don't know if it's correct, but in any case, Sherry is kind of what Phil C does, except in hardware. Um, and this is cool because it really can turn undefined behavior into a crash reliably. Um, so long story short, the Phil C stuff is essentially somebody doing the concrete work of figuring out how to achieve what in our case we had an issue for, also open for a long time. As for as for the controversy, it's like if you go on social media and read anything from Phil related to Phil C, you will see that he stresses a lot the point of Phil C being safe, unlike Rust. I think that he started doing this because over time people have been dismissive of his work, and I would say unfairly so. And he has essentially butted heads with people that believe that the Rust way is the only safe way. So much that he started doing that stuff. Now, whether that is good or bad behavior, you decide. I do think that obviously trying to pick fights by default in everything that you publish is not great. But on the other hand, man, if that poor guy is actually doing good work and he keeps getting unfair pushback just because some people have like an ideology running in their head and cannot evaluate things critically, I mean, I can see how that is annoying, and it's something that you want to push back. So that happened. I think that Andrew should not have put in the title any Rust reference. I think that ultimately, like, if you just look at that in isolation, that means nothing. That there shouldn't be any controversy. The problem is that as of late, with the ban drama, a lot of attention from the peanut gallery has come to the Zig project, and a lot of people that are ultimately not really interested in they're not interested in what Zig is doing. They're not interested in the future of engineering. No, I mean, but not necessarily because Zig is the future of engineering. I mean, more in general. Some people are just here to meme and dunk on other people, especially when the tech influencers get involved, right? So essentially right now, there's a lot of people that are really on the edge and are looking at any excuse to I don't know, be dumb. And so yeah, that was definitely a bad move in light of this. But as for the contents of the issue, it's like I feel like it's absolutely non-controversial whatsoever. It is literally just a follow-up of a pre-existing issue. So if anybody has questions about it, I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability. I have read how the documentation of how Phil C works. I do not remember. I've read it a while ago. I do not remember every single detail. I probably have not understood every single detail when I read it the first time. So I cannot answer every single question, but I do feel that I have an understanding that is sufficient to agree that it is a fucking cool approach. And the best thing about this approach is that it's entirely optional. Like, the thing is,
Um, Here's another thing that I've seen being said by people that clearly have no interest in understanding what's going on, and that are just here, to pick a side and then fight tribal wars. Um, it's an entirely optional build mode, so that doesn't require you to change almost anything in the way that you program normally. Um, so if you want it, you build for it. If you don't want it, you don't. So it's not like this is gonna change how Zig works. Zig is not going. So, for example, let's see, what people are saying here. Um, have you seen the Zaman Zig library adding Rust like lifetimes to Zig? I think I've seen vaguely, but I don't think the lifetimes are particularly interesting for Zig. Because I think that for them to be really interesting and useful, they would have to be built into the language, and we're not gonna do that. That's not what Zig is. So I don't know. I mean, to be clear, I think these are cool explorations. There have been also other attempts in the past to do something similar, but they're cool. But I don't think there are things that are really gonna impact. They're gonna make you more productive as a average developer of Zig. Wasn't VLC essentially GC, but Zig plans to do it on comp time? The VLC is a lot more than GC, like a lot more. And actually, the GC part apparently is optional. It's just one way of implementing it. So Zig could also implement VLC guarantees, but without the GC. VLC guarantees that you cannot have an invalid pointer dereference. It guarantees that you cannot call a C function with the wrong signature and or rather get UB out of that. It guarantees a lot of things that go way past GC. The point is guaranteeing that you cannot do an invalid memory access by paying the cost of runtime. It's software sherry. Like if you ever heard anything about sherry, it's sherry but software. How is field C different from a managed runtime? It is runtimey. Like field C is necessarily runtimey. Think of it this way: a language that has no runtime whatsoever is a language that allows you to do. It's a language that allows you to do everything that the machine is capable of doing, including the wrong stuff. The machine is capable of making you access invalid memory, and so your program, if your program is exploiting it's giving you, the programmer, access to all the capabilities of the machine, that cannot be taken away. The only way for restricting your ability to do this stuff is essentially, quote unquote, having you target something that is not entirely the physical machine, that is a subset of what the machine can do. And that generally entails having some kind of runtime. Like Python, for example, has a runtime. JavaScript has a runtime, and you're quote unquote sandboxed into that runtime. Field C has to be the same thing. If the machine allows you to do things that are invalid, to restrict your ability to do those things, you have to be inside of it. You have to be sandboxed to some degree. So yes, Field C is essentially in part a runtime. But the point is, it's an opt-in feature. And if you want it, you use it. If you don't want it, you don't use it. If you want to use it in CI exclusively, you use it in CI exclusively. If you want to have to offer multiple builds to your users, you offer multiple builds to your users. The field Zig builds are going to be slower than the release fast builds, but they will guarantee you a crash when you hit UB. So, where you would otherwise be hitting UB. So, it's a pick your poison thing. Yeah. Most of the irate chatter on the subject seems to be people not involved in Zig. There has been, especially on the issue, there has definitely been some brigading going on. I think that it is, like, without a doubt, there have been some bad moves on our part when it comes to recent communication, and that has unfortunately opened the door to people from the outside, not just to criticize, because obviously it's not like we should be immune from criticism, but it's not exactly criticism, right? What you get uh, from the public when things get spicy, what you get is brigading. What you get is people coming in just to dunk on you and make fun. Like there's this negative energy that then has to go somewhere, and it's people raiding your issue tracker or raiding some community or stuff like this. So um I don't know, such is life. I would say it's definitely, from my perspective, this is unfortunate. It is um it is ultimately the result of our own actions. So yeah, well, let's just say lesson learned. um in the past, I think that we've always done mostly well enough when it comes to this stuff, but as of late, this has um, there has been, I would say, like a couple of bad moves that have caused this whole thing to snowball. I think that the solution is to just wait for the attention to shift elsewhere and just continue, doing good work, and things will improve at some point. Like the good things about like mobs of this kind is that the energy dissipates after a while if you are smart about it and just you know don't engage too much and let it dissipate. So ultimately, like, yeah, the mention of Rust in the title was not a genius move, but other than that, the contents of the Filthy issue is like there's just no controversy. It's just working towards a sub goal of the Zig project, which is having a build mode that crashes when you're about to hit undefined behavior, um, which is an extension of what we already have, right? For example, if you build in debug mode or release safe and you are accessing an untagged union, these modes will have a hidden tag that they will check at runtime to guarantee that you're not accessing the wrong case of a union, um, because that would lead to undefined behavior. You would be potentially reading, a float as an int or whatever, and and that's UB. So we already have some of that, and just like we already do, um, this check is present if you want the extra safety. If you don't want the extra safety, you build in release fast. Release fast does not have the secret tag in non-tagged unions. That they are genuinely what says on the tin. And so yeah, you can have it both ways. So you can run your tests with the extra checks and then deploy the faster version if that makes sense to you, or you both test with the checks on and deploy with the checks on. Okay. Hello, Temporus. Well, you're welcome. More power. If anybody has other questions about the PLC proposal or the 80 Proto stuff, I'm happy to chat about this. In the meantime, I'm gonna go to Codeberg, the ziglang.org repository, and I'm going to answer some things. Do-do-do-do-do. Okay. 80 Proto, are you adding something to Zin for it? No. No, but I have been reading about this, I don't know, like um, class of technology, and I find it interesting. And I think that essentially the problem is that Codeberg is cool, but I think that we have not found yet our final home for Zig stuff. And I think that Radical has an interesting offering, not just for the Zig project, but I think also for the Zig community in general. Which, to be clear, doesn't mean that oh, now we have to go all on Radical or whatnot. But no, it's like I want to learn more about it. Let me put it this way. I want to learn more about it for myself because I think it has cool things that I personally would be interested in using. And I think that there is a compelling argument for preferring Radical over self-hosting Forjo, at least for some people. Again, obviously, if you really love hosting your own Forjo, do that, obviously. But I don't know enough. Like, I need to try it out. These things are complicated, right? And I will say this: I don't love peer-to-peer stuff. I don't love federated stuff. To me, that's a bunch of extra machinery, tons of problems, jankiness, and complexity that you wouldn't want to opt in unless you get more than enough value back from having that extra machinery. And to me, it seems that Radical actually does give you back enough value to justify buying into this extra complexity. It's up to debate. I have to look more into it, but I find it compelling. Hopefully, last question. It doesn't have to be. Don't worry. Is it planned to be runtime, not comp time? It has necessarily to be mostly runtime. There is a possibility to do some static analysis. So let's say comp time. But ultimately, today, as far as we know in the field, if you want to do fully static, if you want to fully be able to prove that there is no UB in a entirely at comp time, entirely through static analysis, as far as I'm aware, you kind of have to be Rust or similar to Rust. You need to have lifetimes because you need to essentially provide a framework that the compiler can use to build a proof for your program. So I don't believe that it is possible to have all these guarantees in a systems level programming language with entirely at comp time and entirely through static analysis without having lifetimes or something like that. Now, I'm not saying that this is like entirely impossible. I don't know, but given what we do know today, I do believe that, like, unless we figure out something incredible, I think that as far as we know, Rust and Rust adjacent languages are pretty much the state of the art when it comes to this stuff, and they come with their own sets of trade-offs. So VLC is a pretty much, it's a mainly, if not entirely, a runtime thing. Through some static analysis, you could probably elide some of those checks, but yeah, not all of them. And also, here's another important point: VLC applies also to C and C++ code bases without modification. So that means that will also be able to provide these guarantees for your program, also including your C and C++ dependencies. And that is amazing. Yes, it has the cost of being a runtime heavy type of thing. So it's not free, you're paying for it. But it also allows you to bring into the fold unmodified C and C++ projects. They will need to be compiled in a special manner. So you will need to, tweak the way they get compiled, but you will not have to touch the source code. And that is also a very interesting property. This is a property that Rust doesn't have. Rust is giving you, fully comp time, static analysis type of guarantees, and but it requires you to write Rust code, and it requires you to write Rust code that doesn't overuse unsafe blocks. And if you make a mistake in an unsafe block, then all the guarantees fly out the window. With VLC, you have to pay the runtime price. Maybe with a bit of static analysis, you can make it lighter by removing checks that you can guarantee are unnecessary. Um, but it's a best effort thing, and I don't know how far you can really push it. So the null hypothesis is that VLC is going to be much heavier at runtime, but it also pulls in, but it requires no modification of your programs, generally speaking, and it can also apply to your C and C++ dependencies. So each solution has its own pros and cons. I saw discussions about the feature postponing 1.0. What do you think about that? Not really. We already had an issue about having a build mode that prevents all undefined behavior. Um, that was something that was in scope, like something to be explored. Regardless, actually, you know what? If you will, the VLC proposal is shortening 1.0 because it means that every single thing that Phil has figured out, we don't have to figure out ourselves. Okay. Would be interesting to maybe make it only run on some modules like parsers which interact with untrusted code. I don't know. Maybe I think there is value in having the full guarantee that there is no undefined behavior. Like if you turn it on for your whole thing, setting aside the practical problems of turning it on and off in different parts of the program. So let's assume that that is possible and non-problematic, which I'm not sure if that is the case, but let's assume it is. Um, there is also value in having the full confidence that there is just no UB going on in your program, and making it more exclusive. I don't know, but like let me give you an example. You would definitely be fine with a VLC build of a tool like sudo, or a tool that is dealing with important stuff and woofs. Yeah, maybe woofs. I don't know. I guess. I don't know. By the way, this is an interesting point because I do use woofs in Zine. Would I want to bring? Would I want to not have Zine built in fill mode but have woofs built in fill mode? I don't know. In my specific case, I think I would still prefer a more performant build. But that's if it was a web server, what would I want to do? I think in a web server, I would be more interested in everything being VLC. If I wanted to have this be VLC, I would probably want the whole project to be VLC. But you know what? I don't know for sure. That's just like a gut feeling. Yeah, you know what? It's definitely worth thinking about. That's for sure. At the very least. What am I using Woofs for? It is used to get in image size in Zine at build time, so that when the image is included in the markdown content, it has the width and height properties attributes already set, which allows the browser to pre-size the space where the image will go even before having loaded it. And so it essentially guarantees that the page will not have to be relayouted by the browser once all the images are in. So it essentially gives you a feeling that the page loads more quickly. I mean, it's 100% less work that the browser has to do. Like the relayouting doesn't have to happen, but also from a human perception perspective, it just makes pages feel more fast. What is standard library? I'm not sure what you mean. Which, by the way, this might just be me not knowing enough about woofs. This was a feature that somebody PR'd that I accepted, and my understanding is that we want to learn about width and height of images, and at the same time, we want to support a bunch of different image file formats, and woofs does that, but also in a safe manner, but in a robust manner. Let's say that last part to me is not that important with Zine, because with Zine, like Zine doesn't have right now a like security model. The idea, the expectation for now at least, is that you trust the content that you're building. Now, the setting aside potential bugs in Zine, it's not like the content that you're building can really do much on your computer, because Scripty is extremely limited. So they cannot create files. They cannot do any weird thing. But I guess my point is that at least so far for Zine, release fast and just trying to go fast is the main goal. But if we end up using Wolves, for example, in a Weibo, which is the Discord alternative, oh man, that is going to be a different story. A Weibo needs to prioritize safety over speed, at least for anything that isn't audio video. Audio video needs to be fast. I mean, because audio has to be fast. Like you cannot have choppy audio. It's like not having audio at all. But everything else around it should be definitely more safety conscious. I see. Yeah. Sub compilation of Liban wine failed. What the heck? Why is this? Why is this grabbing the libc from the system? Oh no. Oh no, these people are getting a weirdo build of Zig. So let me give some context. Somebody is trying to PR some changes to the Zig website, and they are having trouble uh, building the website, which includes building Zine. And here, what you see is that we are trying to build the we're trying to build the three-seater. It's the three-seater language syntax highlighting stuff that we're trying to rebuild. This is Neurosite's flow syntax dependency, and that fails to build. But it fails to build because we are trying to pull in things not from the vendor stuff in Zig, but from the system stuff. And why we're doing this, I don't know. That is not normal. I believe that I don't think the neurosite has written the package in a way that really attempts deliberately to do this. It it's making me suspicious that this person there is getting Zig from a uh what's it called, well, from a package. um and I don't know if this has been modified. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's suggest this. Oh, wait, do we have the target support? I think we do, but I should double check. Also, shit, will the neurosite stuff also pick up on that? Um, shit, we don't. It doesn't look like Radical supports a single identity across multiple devices. Yeah, they do say that. Or rotating keys. They do mention that it's one user, one device, one user, well, like one key, one. And it's like if you want to have two identities, you need to set up two nodes. The fact that it's tied to a device, I think it's tied to like a node. I remember reading that in their docs, but saying that it's tied to a device is obviously not factually true, right? How can the system actually know what the like? Do you swap out the CPU and now it's not the same device? No, because it's not integrating with your like uh, motherboard stuff or whatever. So I guess it's one key per node, and the idea is that the node, like if you shouldn't put the same node on two different machines because then it's gonna fuck up. Uh, like the node will not know how to think with itself. That is my understanding. With another copy of itself. So yeah, that's a limitation. I think they're working on this stuff. There was I read some of their discussions in Zulip. In that sense, 80 Proto is more mature, huh? It does have some cool shit though. That Tangled or 80 Proto in general doesn't have. Like the things that I find most interesting about Radical are um, the fact that issues are stored in Git itself. Um, that you can work on them offline and then sync back your changes afterwards. The fact that there is no need for heavy moderation tools because the way it works, which I have to fully explore, but my understanding is so far is that you decide which other copies of your repo to follow. And so you will essentially everybody hosts their own issues on their node, on their copy of the repository, on their fork. And then you can choose to follow somebody. So, and that will allow you to see a unified view that shows your own issues and their issues, but you have to actively follow them. So that way there is no concept of, oh, people are spamming the repository with garbage issues, or rather there are some issues related to that, but they're minor. They show up in a different way than it would happen if you had your repository on Codeberg, for example, where we have been spammed multiple times recently. Well, I mean, not related to the latest stuff, but it has happened multiple times that we've been spammed. So so this seems interesting. There's one last thing that I find interesting, which is that when you set up a seed node, you can choose which other repositories to seed, which means that one thing that I am worried about for my own projects is that I depend on other people's. I have some dependencies in Zine, and they are hosted. Some of them are hosted on Codeberg. Some of them are on GitHub. Some of them are on self-hosted Forjo instances. The problem is that GitHub keeps having downtime. Codeberg also has downtime. People's individual Forjo instances sometimes, eventually a bunch of those will go offline because people, stuff happens in their life and they move on. And so their instance is now offline. What do we do? Like now my projects are gonna start to fail building. So I could either, always deliberately fork their projects and put them in my own account to guarantee that they the original if the original disappears, I at least have the fork still. Um, but on one hand, I think that it's kind of ugly to always point at your fork and not the original one. And at the same time, like you could do vendoring as well, but vendoring also comes with its own set of downsides. While in Radical, what you do is that you can just choose to seed your dependencies. You seed all the repos that you depend on, and it's essentially the same as vendoring because your one host has all of your dependencies also available, but it's done at a lower level, or rather like a different abstraction level. So um, you don't need to literally vendor your dependencies in your repository. You don't need to fork everything. You can depend on the correct identifier that correctly explains who is the original creator of that thing. But since that can be mirrored on your own seed, it's guaranteed that if somebody tries to build your project, they will succeed because the same place where they cloned your thing is the same one that will be able to offer them all the other dependencies. I wonder if you need a public address to host a node. It would be nice if I could run a node without leaking my home IP. I believe that the way it works is that you can set a node. Yeah, you can have an always on node that you host somewhere, and then I think the way it works is that you make changes on your local node, and then you just configure your local node to only sync with that other node, and that other node is your like public interface. I believe. I'm not 100% sure. If someone wants to delete a repo, can they if someone else is seeding it? Good question. I believe that the answer is that um you can't, in the sense that, like, if your point is, oh, I would like to delete my repo and also make it so that nobody else can have a let's say quote unquote fork. Seeding a repo is not exactly a fork, but there is some overlap. And I think the answer is that you already can't, right? Like if you're on GitHub and you delete your repo, if there's forks out there, they survive. And I think here is the same idea. So if you even delete the original one, I believe that other hosts will be able to keep seeding their copy. So I don't think you can retract something from the network. I might be wrong. So take everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt. And I guess you could put in the protocol the fact that the original owner of a repo is asking everybody else to delete copies of it. Um, but I don't know to what degree these things are implemented, planned, or not. Hi, Loris. Have you tried ZML, the Zig machine learning framework? I got the examples running on my computer, but I don't like that it compiles like 5,000 completion units for the MNIST example. No, sorry, I have not used ZML. I personally don't do a lot of machine learning work. So, I mean, the last time that I used the MNIST example, I'm guessing you're talking about the numbers, right? So the handwritten numbers. It's been a long time ago since I've touched this thing last. As for what the build process for ZML is, what I do know is that they encompass a bunch of technologies that, file formats and whatnot that exist in the general ecosystem. So probably that comes into play to some degree. I also know that they like Bazel, um, which I don't like as much. But I don't know. They're going for I'm guessing they are prioritizing like serious use cases, even if that comes at the expense of having simple minimalistic stuff not be as simple as it could be, I guess. But unfortunately, I'm not able to give you more insight than this. I really don't have the experience. My issue is that it would be under my name, right? um We're talking about deleting a repo, right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that works. I mean, if you make a repo though on GitHub and then you delete it because I don't know, I'll make something up. Let's say that you're embarrassed because you have unused variables in there. I don't know. I'm joking. But if you want to delete it and somebody else has forked it, like you just cannot retract it. You can you can make a DMCA request to GitHub if there is copyright infringement going on. But if you're making a public repository and you're putting on it a no a open source license, you're essentially giving people the right to keep a copy of that stuff, even if you delete it. Yes, they will not be able to to publish comments under your name. Correct. Yeah, 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 yeah. Correct. Okay. So um, we are in an annoying situation because we're not building any of this stuff in um, we're not building any of this stuff in a way that allows you to personalize the target. And I think that this person is getting weird behavior not because of us, but because of the Zig that they are using. And that is unfortunate because I cannot give them this advice. That is just a hole in how everything works. Um, can you think of any example for building WASM from root.zig? I can give you an example. I wouldn't say necessarily is as minimal as possible, but it's not too complicated. Um, take a look at Ziggy. So Ziggy is my JSON replacement language, and it has a CLI tool that gives you auto formatting and stuff. It also has a language server, and in source you can see that there is like the main entry point for the CLI tool is main.zig, and which has the main function, and you can see all the subcommands. But there's also wasm.zig. This one contains only the language server because I use this for the VS Code extension. The VS Code extension bundles a WebAssembly build of the language server exclusively, which then runs inside of VS Code. So yeah, this is what it looks like. So yeah, check this out. Okay, so what do we say to this poor person? That is unfortunate. I could git switch master. Oh, we have main. Cool. Git pull. So what we could do. What we could do is tell this person that um they can do this. So one option is tell them to use a pre-built zine. Um, that's one option. Another option is that we fix the build script and we add support for a target flag. And then we wire these out everywhere because I believe that Zine does support specifying the target. It does not support specifying the target. Zine does not support Zine does not support specifying the target. Oh my god. Uh, so wiring these options is not, you know, strictly key, but now that we have a weird situation where somebody is facing some issues, not having these conveniences in place is unfortunately really restricting our options. Because the alternative is asking this person to do like serious surgery to the code base. I mean, if they were in a position to know how to do that comfortably, they would have already done so. So it seems to me so far that this is the best option, telling them to say, look, set this thing, install Zine and set this yourself so that you use the pre-built version of Zine. Hmm. Yeah, I think that is the best option. Now, which version of Zine is the Zig website depending on? That is known in the zone file, not this one. This one. It's a random commit. This has 11.2, but it is a random commit indeed. Or rather, it might not be, but chances are that it is, because chances are that we would have put a tag there if there had been one easily available. Let's double check. In any case, I think this might not make that much of a difference. Uh, am I getting the? Oh, right. That is not what I'm getting, because this is a fragment. Oh shit. Um. Okay, show me one specific commit, and then we're gonna change that with the contents of this thing. I release 0.11.3. This is probably, yeah, okay. So we either want 0.11.2 or we want 0.11.3. In doubt, I would pick 0.11.3. Although, is this before or after? Oh wait, this is it. This is the tag, is it not? Commit 61 61 ed. Is this the tag? No, but it might be close to.
Uh, it might actually be close to 11.2. Hmm. No. Wait a second. Okay, I'll figure this out. Tell me the date. When did this happen? April 10. Okay, thank you. Okay, so where are we with tags? Is it April? No, this is last month. True. This is 8 months ago. That sounds earlier than April. Okay, so somewhere in between is where that commit was. That means that we want to go to 11.3. In any case, it didn't change the minor numbers, so chances are that it shouldn't cause trouble. Okay, let's hopefully hopefully we can unblock this person. Um, well, there's some steps that are missing, and then download this. Could the guy have the Rust core utils? What do you mean? Um. Oh, you mean like a different version of those dependencies? Um. Yeah, I have no clue. But they have a missing file in the libc, right? Like Rust wouldn't impact this, right? Like a Rust version of core utils wouldn't change what type of libc you get. I think this is just an incompatibility between, I don't know, either. Oh, you know what that sounds like? This is a CPP file, but it gets us back to this, which does not seem CPP. I was about to say that maybe this is there's like the two different C++ standard libraries, and maybe it's one versus the other, but never mind. Yeah, I don't know. The thing that actually spooks me the most is that Zig should not be looking at your native libc. I think unless you request it to. I am making a native build, but I would expect Zig to pick its own libc anyway. Maybe this is wrong. Maybe I'm misunderstanding some corner case of how this works, but I don't know. Anyway,
What does the setting look like? I already forgot. Scene equals dot path equals null. Ranieri says it's using pthread and this uses libc in Zig. Yes, but the fact that you are using libc, it is using libc because you're using. We are depending on libc because of. I think Reciter needs it, or if it's not Reciter, Whoops does. In any case, that is why the project is linking. Actually, wait, does Zin depend on libc really? Yeah, it does because of these things. Um, but the fact is, Zig ships its own libc. So what is weird is that it's using the system one. Zig normally doesn't use the system libc unless you ask it to. And here, I believe nobody's asking for that. I might be missing some detail, but in any case, um, it should allow you to avoid buildings in your buildings in. Hmm. Well, whatever. I guess we can leave it at that. I only come here from time to time when I have time. Yeah. Do you know of any Zig community in Portugal? And also, would changes to type of allow me to type of functions still? Um, so if you mean making functions at comp time, no, that is still not a thing. Um, that is kind of on purpose, a limitation there to prevent some insanity with comp time metaprogramming. There are alternatives, like you can still make functions that, for example, accept a genetic parameter, and then you can apply all of those to a type, but type of doesn't make that whole thing seamless. So I don't know, keep that in mind. As far as the communities in Portugal, unfortunately, I am not aware of any. I know there are some people trying to start a community in Spain, and I'm so bad because I need to reply to these people. Oh my god. Uh, but no, as far as I know, Portugal is not quite there yet. There's MatClad though in Portugal, so who knows? Maybe we can convince him to become a local community leader. Well, okay. So this is it for now. That's kind of an unsatisfying situation. Unfortunately, really kind of unsatisfying. Um, yeah, but I don't know what the problem is. Unfortunately. So the next thing is Zine. Yeah, Markard is there. Yeah, he is. I don't remember precisely where he lives. If I did remember, probably I shouldn't share anything super specific, I guess. But yeah, as far as I know, he lives in Portugal. Um, that being said, there are a variety. There is a long list of reasons to not be available to organize Zig meetups, even if you are involved in the community. I would say that Markalad is, well involved in the community, but still, take what I said mostly as a joke. Uh, but yeah, so I guess my point is, don't lose all hope. Uh, there, I think there are ways of making things happen in Portugal, um, but yeah, I think I know how it is. In this sense, like Italy, Spain, Portugal, we're not all that different in the sense that it's more likely that if there is stuff happening, it's happening like in Germany than in Italy, Spain, Portugal. But I think that if you're either patient or uh, enterprising, um, it can happen. When I say enterprising, I mean, if there is no Z community near you, you could attempt to start one yourself, and maybe other people are not willing to make the first move, be the organizers of a community, but they would be willing to join. Again, and by the way, we're saying Portugal, which is a big place, so obviously, if you do something, it would be more local than that. It would be around the city that you live in. Um, but yeah, although occasionally people do come also from a little bit further away, because Z days are events that they take a full day. So if you're into it, do you can travel a little bit further than you would be willing to travel to a normal you know evening meetup, and also they don't happen too often. They happen like once a month, once 2 3 months. So people are willing to invest more also in an event that happens less often. I go to this one sometimes don't work and stay overnight. Yeah, I can see that. Makes sense. Okay. Last issue, and then we look at Radical. Okay, maybe. Yeah, give me a second. Um, and then I'm gonna do that. Doo-doo-doo. Okay. Oh, hello. Welcome, Raiders. Hello, everybody. Hey, Loris, please keep Zig focused on row speed and simplicity. Having runtime safety checks risks losing what makes Zig great. Absolute hardware efficiency, maximum performance first. Well, thank you for the comment. But that is a false dichotomy. That is, don't worry, that is a false dichotomy. Um, a build mode that has um, heavy runtime checks, like we already have those. Would you argue that having a debug release mode, or a debug build mode, and a release safe build mode detracts from release fast? It doesn't. It actually complements it because you can use debug mode to run tests. You can use release safe for fuzzing. By the way, you want to fuzz using release fast, not debug builds. And so having build mode that has the guarantee of no UB is just like, it's just yet another thing that you can do with the language that doesn't take anything away from release fast and release small. So um if you believe any different, is probably because you have heard somebody shout some kind of how fast um opinion on the reasons why this is happening. Like, people have been saying, oh, this is because of ban, this is because of there's this deep hatred for Rust, so you have to one up them. Not at all. None of this stuff is even remotely true. But the ban also one is funny because you know that the ban people would not want to use a filthy build of Zig, a fill Zig build of their project. So that is absolutely none of that. We have a long-standing issue on the tracker about having a build mode that catches all undefined behavior. The filthy issue is a follow-up to that, and it's just an issue that brings in a set of concrete ideas on how to implement that. So here's what I would say. Think of the filthy mode as an extension, as an optional extension of release safe. You use it when you want to use it, when just like release safe, you use release safe when you want release safe, and you use release fast when you want release fast, and neither detracts from the other. So don't worry. Nothing has changed. These are all different things that you can do with a language that doesn't come with a runtime built in. You have no runtime that is ingrained into the way the language works, and so that gives you maximum flexibility, which includes occasionally adding strategically some runtimey things when you want them. Case in point, release safe has runtime bounds checks that get added by the compiler that you don't write yourself, but they are there written by the compiler. It adds secret tags for untagged unions to guarantee a panic if you try to access the wrong case of a non-tagged union, an untagged union. So that was already there. This idea is just it's obviously more invasive, but it gives you the guarantee that there is no UB going on in your program. And so, it comes at a cost, obviously, but it has a set of benefits, and it's entirely optional. So you don't have to opt into it if you don't want it. It literally is just good all around. One question on the metaprogramming side of things: how can I create an any type in Zig? What would an any type be precisely? I'm trying to follow some of the ideas from Jai. I think that in general, the Jai metaprogramming is more galaxy brained than the Zig metaprogramming. So I can imagine that there are plenty of things that you can do with Jai CompTime than with Jai metaprogramming that you cannot do with Zig CompTime. Zig CompTime is designed to keep the insanity at bay in a sense. Type info plus any opaque. So like runtime box, or is that would be a runtime box that has a type ID for every possible type. I don't think this is possible today with the language. Mm, if I understand this correctly, um, this is not really possible today with the language. I think ironically the field C proposal would get us closer to being able to do that, because that implies creating a unique identifier for every type in the program, which is a primitive that we currently don't have. Um, but uh, but I also would question what it is that you're trying to do with this stuff, because it's cool and fancy, but it's also very high level. Let's just put it that way. I'm starting out with Zig, and I'm not sure I have the background to understand the relevance of having two ways to do the following. Given an array X, we can iterate over its elements either by accessing them directly or simply getting copies. Yeah. Is that correct? Why the redundancy when it comes to accessing the values? Can we not always dereference using if given the address? If anyone has a take, I would love to hear it. This first version allows you to mutate the items in the array. These latter versions, they do not allow you to mutate the array. I would say that this one with the pointer taken from the array, and this one where you don't take the pointer from the array, I think they are essentially the same. The key thing is when you combine taking a pointer, well, which is kind of necessary if you want to do the star Y. Like if you grab the item by pointer, then you have the ability to mutate the original array, while in these other cases you can't. That's the key difference essentially. So why have both versions of this? Well, I mean, you obviously want to have the ability to loop over an array and mutate the elements. So maybe you could argue that this other one is unnecessary. But it is also not horrible to express that you do not intend to modify these elements, and so you get them semantically by copy. And by the way, whether that copy happens or not, that is not up to you. It's up to, like, that is not guaranteed that it will happen. The compiler, in an optimized release, it will not make copies of items that is not necessary to make. So yeah. Just during the stream, how would you respond to the idea that field Zig is breaking the promise of no hidden allocations? I feel like it actually doesn't remove the promise, since you are still aware of it, but curious to hear your thoughts. I talked already about field Zig a little bit, but I don't mind repeating some of what I said. Field Zig is adding hidden stuff, yes. Zig already has build modes that add hidden stuff. Release save adds hidden out of bounds check when you're accessing an array. Release and debug as well. Another thing that is added is when you have a union that is not tagged in release save, you have a hidden tag anyway present in the union, and that is checked to guarantee that you're not accessing the wrong union case. And your program will panic if you access the wrong union case. But then, if you don't want these checks, you build release fast, and release fast doesn't have any of that. So a field Zig mode is essentially just a different build mode. So you turn it on and you get the bounce checks, the hidden tag in unions, the extra checks that guarantee that whenever you dereference a pointer, you're not dereferencing garbage, or you are not causing type confusion. And some of this stuff will come at a cost maybe of even heap allocation, but it's you opt into that. And if you don't want it, you don't use it. And the nice thing is that generally speaking will not require you to modify your code at all. And it also, like, in the end result is that you have an executable that it is guaranteed to not have UB in it. So that's valuable. even if you have C and C++ dependencies, because the field Zig, field C stuff will also apply to your C dependencies, C++ dependencies. So, yeah, it's not free. Obviously, it comes at a cost. It comes at a runtime cost, but it gives you, properties back that you can leverage. So you could even say, well, you know what? I'm going to run my tests or my fast tests with this stuff on and not my production executable. My production executable, I keep it release fast. Or in some other cases, you'll say, well, you know what? This one specific program, I want to keep it in, I want to keep building it. I want to distribute it, built with field Zig on, because for this executable, it doesn't really matter how fast it is, past a certain degree. And instead, the guarantee that it does not have UB whatsoever is more valuable to me. So you can choose this. And then, lastly, another interesting thing is that field C is essentially runtime. It's software sherry. So if one day the sherry architecture becomes commonplace, like you can get your hands on sherry hardware, then you can just turn the field C stuff off, make a release fast build for sherry hardware, and you have the release fast stuff, like you have the release fast performance and the safety guarantees that you would have from field C, but you get them from the sherry hardware. So because the sherry is an architecture that does essentially what field C does in software, just in hardware. So I don't know. It's more tools in your tool belt. It's more things that you can do. Yeah. Hello in your site. I don't remember if I greeted you already. Also, thank you for the raid. Thank you, Set UID run for the tier 1 sub, by the way. Sorry, I didn't mention it earlier. I was mid rant. But I was answering questions. Doesn't feel C mandate that you use malloc free? Doesn't feel C mandate that you use malloc free? I don't believe so. When you say malloc free, you're specifically stating that FilC requires you to use the allocator implementation in the libc. And I don't think that is strictly true, because I believe that the libc is not special code that has capabilities that the rest of your program does not have. I believe that the FilC libc is under the same restrictions as the rest of the code. And so FilC doesn't have escape hatches, right? And so whichever way malloc and free are implemented in there, you can implement that in your own program in the same way or in different ways. So I don't believe that is the case. FilC does mandate that you use its libc implementation, because that has, I believe, wrappers around all the syscalls, and I don't know, maybe also other stuff related to, I'm guessing, maybe loading dynamic libraries at runtime, because like loading dynamic libraries is kind of a weird C runtimey thing. So I would imagine that FilC has to have a say in how that works in order to guarantee the same, to uphold the properties that it's supposed to uphold. Um, yeah. Okay. So give me a second, and I'll be back. Doesn't FilC instrument the syscalls? Yes, it does. Yeah, for sure. Um, okay. Yeah, as I said, give me a second, and we continue everything to do. Okay, I'll be right back. 30 seconds. Okay, I'm back. Okay, let's answer this issue and then let's play with Radical. By the way, if anybody has questions about Field C, the Field Zig stuff, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to chat about this stuff. Don't worry. Yeah, we've been chatting about it for a while, so it is possible that you ask something that was already asked, but I don't mind repeating myself. It's part of the job, essentially. That's just how streaming works. Okay. So this issue is about missing features for tags. It would be nice to have a way to define a page which renders for each tag on the site, and a way to enumerate pages with a given tag, perhaps in a given section as well. So let's answer them in reverse order because the answer to the second question is definitely shorter than the first question. So I'll answer in reverse order. For number 2, can't use £. So for 2, this is already available. It's $page.find by tag, where $page is a section page, i.e., it's named index.smd. And if you want the whole website, which you can normally fetch this way, or rather, a common, if, for example, you want to access the, you want to get only blog entries from the blog section of your website, you would do $site.page blog dot find by tag. If you want all pages with that tag, then you would do the same from the site's index. Now that I'm okay. Let me provide also a link to the docs because we have them. We should use them. So page here. Yeah, and I wanted to double check also because I feared I would fuck it up and forget. Oh no, this is missing a. No, this is not missing anything. Okay, cool. So it's sub pages by. Okay, so here's what I'm going to recommend. The idea is um, when you use tags, when you render tag information, you don't just render the tag, but you render the tag in relationship to a page somewhere that corresponds to that tag. That way, when you make a new tag that doesn't have the corresponding page, you get a build error that tells you, well, you made a new tag, or you typoed it. Um, Make a page for it. And you want to make a page if you want to also give it a description, for example, which is not necessary, but it's actually a nice thing to do, I think. So here's the idea. So this would be like tags slash I don't know. Um, and lastly, when rendering tags for a blog post, um, link the tag to the corresponding page using the tag name as part of the path. Um, um, a useful thing um, to help express this in an elegant manner is to pass multiple arguments to path. See the relevant docs. So this setup allows you to attach metadata to each tag, which you could even show as mouse over tooltip, for example. And it also guarantees that you do have a page for each tag that you have, meaning that um, you will get a reasonably comprehensible build error if you reference if you create a new tag or make a typo. Okay. Well, if there are any blockers. Okay, so I'm happy because yeah, having a built-in way of having like pages for each tag, it wouldn't be like, it would be nice at least, you know, at a high level. I'm not 100% sure how I would want the details to work precisely, so um I think I would still be um I'm not confident that I would be able to implement it in a way that would make me happy with what I know right now today. But on the other hand, the way of doing this in if you will in userland, like as the author of your website, is still pretty good. It requires a little bit of manual fiddling, but it's a reasonable amount. It gives you all the flexibility that you would ever want to have. Um, and you know what? I'll just add one thing. Okay, I'll just make this more explicit. When I talked about changes to type of, I was trying to reference the new proposal for about the pipe T stuff. Okay, I see. And the removal of type of. Oh, I see. I completely misunderstood what you were referencing. Sorry. um, yeah, so that proposal, I believe, is still there. It's still open. It's still not accepted. I would say that it is not impossible, but not particularly likely that that proposal will be accepted. I mean, Andrew opened it himself, but even then, I suspect that that was more like a way of noting down some ideas that he had and potential approaches. But I don't think he is, you know, particularly confident on that approach. Um, that's my impression. Another question about metaprogramming stuff with any, yeah, we'll see if we could help with that. One of the issues that Zig doesn't have type info live in runtime. Yeah, I mean, you can collect type info stuff and like some type info values, like for example, um, field names, decal names. These are just array of strings. You can keep them around and reference them at runtime. The problem is that that still is not meant to give you a global view of all the types that exist. So that is the kind of stuff that Comtime is, I would say, somewhat deliberately trying to be restrictive about. Like the specifics of this use case, to what degree exactly Comtime should try to keep you out of it or not. I don't think we even have a super well defined stance on it, as far as I know. But um, but uh, but yeah, with the field zig stuff, by necessity, there would have to be a way of giving a unique identifier to every type. Now, that does not guarantee that that capability would be exposed to users, but it would at least make it more likely for that to happen. I will say though that there is there is a there are some serious advantages in sometimes resorting to code generation rather than comp time. Let me give you one example that I've worked on recently. Um, it's Zig Bundle. Well, it's Christoph IT Zig Bundler. I don't even remember the names of my own projects. So, what is Zig Bundler? Zig Bundler is a dependency. It's a library that I made where in your build system you say that you want to create a bundle starting from a directory, and the directory, essentially what this thing will do is at build time, it will scan all the files in your directory. It will collect all the files, embed the files in your executable compressed, and as it stands currently, the file names become like it creates definitions, like you do my bundle.files, and then in there you have all your files, including like directories. So let's say that if B was inside a foo directory, you would do my bundle.files.foo.b.txt. And this is all compressed and embedded in your executable. So what is my point? My point is that I don't think you can do this with comp time today, kind of on purpose. But also, it is very nice to have this actually in generated code, because it's kind of well, in this case it's not terribly complex, but it's already kind of in my opinion, complex enough system that you would want to occasionally do go to definition to see what's going on. Maybe you think that a file should be in there and it's not, and you're confused. So you being able to look at the original source definition is nice. And so the way this works is that it has a there's a stub of a file that contains the implementation of extract, but then everything below it is generated at build time as source. So we generate a Zig source file that then becomes part of the build, and in there's going to be public definitions for everything. By the way, the reason why we do declarations is so that the file paths and the file names don't end up in the final executable, because these are variable names. They don't end up in the executable in the end. Or if you do a like build release safe, release fast build, like if you're doing a debug build, or like if you have debug info, the debug info will contain these names, obviously. But it's not like data that has to be in your executable no matter what. So the way it works is that there's this program that literally prints out the source code. This is not awesome, and I think that I think there is a way. I mean, I'm sure there are ways of making this process of printing out a source file more nice. Maybe even adding some like nice facilities that make it look like kind of that you're doing comp time. But the end result is that you have like users will have a tangible source file that they can they can go to definition on. They can open in their editor and inspect. And not only that, but here's another thing that I've been thinking. I would actually like for this tool. So whenever it generates this file with all the definitions, it would be nice if this also added doc comments with like stats about the file. Like if it told you less modified, file size. Well, actually, file size is not that important, but it would be cool so that as you're doing photo.jpg in your editor, the LSP is giving you information about it, which here is as a doc comment. So my point is, in conclusion, there are some cool things that you can unlock by doing code generation instead of trying to do everything at comp time. And obviously having a Galaxy Brain comp time is super cool, and you can do the weirdest stuff. And if you want to feel all powerful, that is the way. But complex metaprogramming is horrible for users, because if something goes wrong, or if they are trying to understand how it works and some property that is not immediately clear to them, because maybe it's clear to you as the author, but it's not clear to them as users, unraveling comp time metaprogramming, no matter the language, is a nightmare. So trying to put a hard limit on how insane you can go with that stuff and reserving everything past that to code generation is not a bad idea. Now, as I will not attempt to claim that this thing that is chaining strings together is elegant. This is not elegant. But I do think that this approach can be improved. I didn't bother. As far as code generation goes, like this is so trivial that it doesn't matter. But I am confident that all of this can be made, less stringly typed, more type safe, more correct by construction than this is. So like code generation can be made ergonomic and comprehensible, and then you leave your users with a much easier to understand artifact than if you left them with a bunch of comp time metaprogramming. So my point is, keep that in mind. I don't mean to pass any judgment to what you're trying to do, and regardless, even if you want to do it just for fun, obviously, feel free. But even though code generation is like is not sexy, if you do it, I think if you look at it from a holistic perspective, the fact, for example, that you can add doc comments to those things is actually pretty cool. Let's see. Worst thing is being able to unbox on any opaque. I think I'm missing something obvious. Well, what you would need to be able to reliably unbox any opaque would be that you would need a type ID, right? You would need, let's imagine that you would have a enum where every single case in that enum is a different type, and then you're able to write a inline switch that switches on that tag and selects the right branch where the unboxing tries to, typecasts any opaque to the right type. So that would allow you to bridge runtime with essentially what has to be some kind of build time specialization. And that is not available today in Zig. Yeah. You're trying out Radical today? Yes, I'm about to. Great job on Zine, thank you. And the design choices, I like reading your blog. It's pleasant and neat. I like the style. Thank you very much. Yeah, I recently, so I haven't touched my personal blog in a long time, and then recently I decided to finally polish it a little bit. Like this is a new homepage that I've added somewhat recently. I've kept the old one forever. At some point, it got like pretty stale. Um, I also did this because I felt like, oh man, like I'm yapping about static websites, etc., and then my own personal website is like more janky and obsolete than it should be. And in the process, I also updated my fonts, and I'm pretty happy with where I landed. Like I didn't do any like super hardcore polishing work. Um, but oh no, the CSS is broken. I need to fix the CSS for this thing. In any case, I didn't do any super hardcore polishing work, but um, I feel like I had already a pretty good base. And yeah, thank you. I'm also happy with the way that my personal blog is working. I feel like I was really lucky also with Zine, because I feel like I landed on a pretty decent style kind of right away without even trying hard. Um like the fact that this looks a little bit like a newspaper thing, that's cool. The boxes with the dotted uh borders, I feel like it's decent. It's not amazing. I'm sure that people can do better, but as a lowly software engineer that isn't particularly good at anything front end, this to me was like you know landing on something really good. Hello, Sob. Having a feature that turns comp time into a final interpreted code would be really nice for clarity. Um, Having a serializer for Zig type definitions, yeah, would be nice, because it would allow you to use comp time to build a type definition and then you serialize it. That would be nice. Although, the comp time would be more restrictive, because than what you would be able to do with um, with a dedicated user line thing. In any case, something like this can be made. You can just store a runtime SED built-in type. I don't know if you can store an entire type. I think that I might be wrong, but I think that this guy has comp time only types, but some subset of it you can. Some subset of it you can, and at the same time, but the problem is, I think for somebody who wants to do this kind of stuff, is that you don't have an easy way of obtaining one of these things for every single type that is happening in your program. So you would still be restricted to a specific subset, which, it might actually be a feature depending on what you're trying to achieve. In the sense that if you have a function that accepts any type, then you would have to worry only about the possible types that you could receive depending on where the call sites are. You wouldn't have to worry about types that exist in the program but that are never going to reach that function. So I don't know. It's trade-offs all the way down. It's obviously cool to do funky metaprogramming stuff, but from the perspective of just effective engineering, man, comp time is something that you should know. Again, no matter the language, like I think the Zig really has one of the most easily comprehensible comp time systems, metaprogramming systems that you can have in a language. And even then, you can have too much. You can get to a point where it is just uncomfortable for your users to make sense of what your library, your code is doing. Um, Not even Lisp is immune to bad metaprogramming, so there's that. Okay, let's take a look at Radical. Man, it's already so late. Oh well. Are there a lot of languages where the end user is subject to compilation times directly? Mm, Brobutu, I'm not sure what you mean. Can you find can you qualify this slightly more? I- i- is this about the fact that beta programming creates bigger compile times? I think during no. It's okay. I see. It's not a matter of compile times, or rather, comp time will slow down your compilation in Zig for sure. I think it's not the only language where that happens. Um, but my argument was not about that. My argument was about not end users who use your program, but like other programmers who use your metaprogramming stuff as a dependency. So if you're making, I'll give you one concrete example. At some point, I was trying to use a library to have a more comfortable interface to SQLite in Zig, and there were like a couple candidate libraries that exist in the ecosystem. One is, I believe, one is from Carl Seguin. One is from Virishman. I think it's the Virishman one. I think this is the one that is more heavily abstracted. Prepare with diagnostics. Or I may be wrong. This seems pretty straightforward. Let me look at the Carl Seguin one. Oh, it doesn't even show up in here? Really? Yeah, the other one is ZQLite. Um, yeah, I don't think it's this one. I think it's the Virishman one. Um, in any case, one of these two libraries, which I believe was this one, but at this point, I'm not 100% sure. Although, yeah, looking at this, that does seem to be the case. In any case, I looked at this library, and at some point, it was having trouble. Yeah, it's basically automatically mapping the result of a query to a type definition that you provide. And I remember that I was having a couple of issues. One was I was trying to understand how certain things worked precisely, and there was too much metaprogramming, and I couldn't like I would have to put in more effort to understand what was going on, and then what I was comfortable putting in at that moment. And so I found that annoying. And the other one was that I was using unstable Zig. That's a somewhat temporary problem, but obviously it is the situation that we're in right now. And it was my choice to use unstable Zig. Um, so it's fair to say that is a problem that I created for myself, at least to some degree. But what would happen is that I would update Zig, and then maybe this library required updating, but they required updating in all the comp time, in parts of the comp time logic, and it was not immediately obvious how to fix it. Um, and so the point is that there is a complexity cost in doing heavy metaprogramming. I ended up removing this library and switching, I believe, to the Carl Seguin one, simply because the other one was more bare bone and it would break less. Again, that's a temporary problem because Zig is not 1.0. Eventually, it will be. So it's an artifact of the time. But more in general, it was harder for me to understand my dependency. And while in other languages, it's fine to think of your dependencies as as a black box. In Zig, you have more reasons to want to be more intimate in a sense with your dependencies. That is, even though it's code that you have not written, it's still code that you're running. And so there are more reasons to want to look at your dependencies code than maybe in, say, Python. And so from that perspective, having a library that has a lot of comp-time programming in it, it comes with a cost. And that cost is not always worth it. Will people be able to sit above the layer of abstraction in Zig 1.0? I mean, if you want, yes, for sure. Technically, you can do that also today if you just stick to a stable version of Zig. Like if you stick to Zig 0.16, your libraries are not going to break until you upgrade to Zig 0.17. And you just have to wait a little bit, and the upgrade is going to be seamless because the author of that library will do the work to update to Zig 0.17, and you just need to grab the updated version when it comes out. And so, like, essentially, you yourself, if you do it this way, you yourself will not be able to upgrade to Zig 0.17 until all your dependencies have done that. But if that is the perspective that you're having, you don't want to do the work yourself, it's fine, it's reasonable, and essentially you just have to worry about this stuff. I don't know, once every 6 months, more or less, whenever a Zig release happens. But once 1.0 is reached, that is going to be even more true, right? Because of the backwards compatibility promise. But my point is that you still do not want to look at your dependencies as a black box when you're doing Zig. You can do it if you want, but you will be missing out. Zig is a language that really is able to give you stuff in return if you take that extra care in how your program runs. Again, doesn't mean that you have to. Plenty of people will not do it and be happy, write good enough software, and everything will be nice. But the whole idea that a dependency should be treated as a black box, which might very well be the way that you're supposed to look at things in another language, that is definitely not the case for Zig. Something to keep in mind. Okay, let's get started. So, to install Radical, simply run the command below in your shell or go to the download page. Let's go to the download page. Package manager, apt sudo pacman nix reproducible binary. Okay. So interesting. Do they not have this stuff on Brew? Maybe they don't trust Brew. I don't know. Okay, let's let's pipe stuff into our kernel. Why not? Oops. Before running Radical for the first time, source zsh env or open a new terminal. Well, here's the problem. I'm using fish, so that command wouldn't do much. I can open a new terminal though. Oh wait, I don't have Radical. What the heck? Oh, they updated this. They didn't update my fish. Okay, so let's look at what they did in here. Is there really no mention of Radical? Is this it? Is this it? We would expect them to have added the last thing, right? Oh, ZSH ENV, thank you. Well, there we go. Wait, is this a config file in there, or do I have a fish file in my home? Oh, it's in here. It's this bad boy. There we go. Christoph dot radical. Why do they do dot radical instead of dot local? Why do they have to be special? I still wait. What? Hello? Um, that should be it. No. Source your config, but I opened a new tab. Why is my new tab not good enough? You did run radical. Yes, when I put the full path in there, not when I try to access it from path. How is this how is this not working? Also, you know what I'm realizing? That these probably should be at the top. You want the you want the yeah, this grows on the left, right? So the later stuff overrides the earlier stuff. So you kind of want these to be at the top, not at the bottom. Fish integration with Ghosty. Oh shit. Yeah. Okay, so how does that work? How do you reload config in fish? Fish reload config. Oh, you just source the config stuff. Okay. I mean, fair. I just know that fish sometimes does the things differently. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, I fucking typoed it then. There is no other way. I must have typoed it. And yet. And yet, no, I haven't. It is. It is indeed. That is weird behavior. What is going on? Non command rad. Um, show me my path. There we go. User Christoph local bean, user Christoph radical bean. So the path is there. I have it in my path, guys. There's no uppercase X, only lowercase X. I mean, I'm using a lowercase X. Yeah. Okay, what the heck is going on here? Okay, flow is dying. Rat does not show up. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Is it because it doesn't have, I don't know, like execute? No, it has execute. It's a link. It is not a link. Wait, isn't the start Doesn't the star mean that it's a link? Does it mean that it's executable? Well, I think it is here. It will give you an arrow when it's a link. You are right. So the star means that it's executable. Okay, so then yeah, no, I think that you're right. Uh there's this mystery as to why the heck is not available in path. I mean, it is in path. Why is it not showing up though? That is weird. Okay, so whatever. Radical desktop for graphical collaborative experience. Check out the desktop client. No, let's go CLI. How it works: your data forever secure, unparalleled autonomy, local first, evolvable and extensible, modular by design. Yes. Rehash. That does not seem to be a command that I can run. Here's what I'm gonna do. What if I get into ZSH. ZSH has RAD. What if I enter fish from here? Now I have RAD. I feel like when somebody was mentioning, I think that when somebody was mentioning the integration with Ghosty, maybe that has something to do. But you know what? Here's how we solve it. We fish in fish. Shit, we still cannot RAD. Really? Even fishing in fish. So the only solution is ZSH and then fish in ZSH. Now it works. I mean, this obviously cannot be a long-term solution. But I guess we can make do for now. Do you have command equals fish? I mean, it's an executable in my path. It's weird that it doesn't pick it up. Yeah, I have this stuff. Okay. So what would be our next step? I guess we need to well, we need I guess we need to do the basic setup to put something in there. And then maybe we want to run the web interface so that we can take a peek at the web interface. Uh, I think that if I turn off Ghosty and I turn it back on, then it will be fixed. But I don't want to do that because that's gonna lose me Bork. So it's fine. I'll do fish in ZSH. Fish ZSH fish. That's a weird fish sandwich, but it will get us past this initial hurdle. Oh, there was a mention of homebrew. Well, I could have also done that, but well, it's fine. Creating your radical identity. I guess that's our starting point. So you need to do rad auth. You will be prompted with an alias and a passphrase to protect your key pair. Your DID is your unique identity across the network. Yeah. Okay, so rad auth. It is Christoph. Enter your passphrase. I would imagine that this is gonna not show what I type, but you know, for extra safety, I'm gonna full screen my camera. There we go. So here's my DID. It's a key type DID. This identifies your device. Run rad self to show it at all times. You're all set. So, okay. To create a radical repository, run rad init from a Git repository with at least one commit. To clone a repository, run rad clone RID. For example, rad clone, I'm guessing this is their repository hardwood. To get a list of all commands, run rad. Yeah. So how do we do this? I guess the question is, if you have a normal Git repository, you can still rad it up and then also use it as a more vanilla Git thing, right? Because I think that the majority of the rad specific stuff is in the rad executable or in a Git extension, a Git like a Git subcommand thing. I remember reading in the docs. So if I go and rad up a repository that I have on Codeberg, for example, or on GitHub, that should not mess it up. I mean, worst case, I delete the local clone, so it should be fine. What should we rad up first? Should it be Zine? Rada Weibo. Man, that would be radical, huh? No, radical, like for real, no joke. Let me put Zine there. Initializing radical repository increase of Zine. Name Zine. Yes. Description. Flexible. Oh shit, I don't even remember my description. All your code base. Well, that's an organization. That's a lot of repos. What's the tagline for Zine? I forgot. Fast, scalable, and flexible static site generator. You know what? Copy and paste. Default branch. Main. Visibility. Public. Okay. So we have a repository ID now. You can show it anytime running rad dot from this repository. The repository will be announced to the network when you start your node. You can start your node with rad node start. Push changes, run git push rad main. Right, because what? So I have a rad remote then. I have a rad remote indeed. Okay. Did we do a slop check on radical? Hey, Matt, I don't know. Do you feel like doing it? Okay, so rad node start. Passphrase. Oh, shit. Oh, okay. To stay in sync with the network, leave the node running in the background, learn more, rad node help. Okay, so this started like as a service. What do we have in here? So I guess this is what I'm connected to. So it's running with ID whatever and not configured to listen for inbound connections. Yes, thank you. Indeed. Oh my god, this is a nice default. I definitely would not want to have this thing run with accepting inbound connections on my machine right now. So I guess what's happening is that we have actively looked for other nodes to let them know that we exist and let them know that we have a Zine repository. And I guess some of these nodes are interested in it, some of them are not. I wonder how they actually grab this stuff, if they even can. Entering reactor event loop, binding control socket, running node, received command query state, connected, received listen address, command query state, query state. Okay. So, I mean, so far so good. . Stop the node by running stop. Your node configuration lives in radical config.json. See the user guide for details on customizing your setup. Your first repository. Yeah, we did this. Your repository is now on the Radical network. You can see which nodes have replicated your repository by using rad sync status. Let's go. So that is me. Oh, interesting. So that is me having my shit. And then there's another node in the network that was interested in my shit. And they now have a copy of Zine. Interesting. What is Rosa Radical Network? Let's go investigate. I don't know if it's accessible on the web or not. It kind of is, apparently. This service doesn't serve the Radical Explorer web client. Okay, so they have a web interface, but it's just API. Huh. Filed by commit, filed by canonical head, filed by OID. Okay. So I guess this is a node that has some web presence, but it's also not really meant to be snooped in visually by users. I would like to run the HTTPD thing myself. So git push as usual. If you ever think the node has not announced changes or that it needs to fetch changes, then you can always manually synchronize with the network with rad sync. You can set your repository's visibility to private during rad init. Private repositories are only replicated to nodes you explicitly allow. Cloning a repository. You can clone a repository from the network using the RID. Yeah, you do rad clone whatever. This fetches the repository from connected peers and creates a working copy just like git clone. The difference is that Radical will first ask the network for the repository and clone it from the first available node. Your first issue. Yeah, rad issue open. Yeah, so far so good. Your first patch. This part is cool, but I don't want to do it now. I want to see the webby thingy. There's also Radical Desktop. Okay, I didn't want to do it earlier, but you know what? Maybe it's worth testing it out. Apple Silicon. Let's go. More curl stuff. Interesting. Copying this file has made me lose my what the heck? Oh, is it because I copied it? Okay, no, we're back. Did this create a file in the Zine repository? No. Oh, it's in downloads. Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, let's open it. So it sees my node, my DID. It has my Zine repo. Okay, so with this, I can see what's on my local node. I see the commits. Check out repo, copy link. Delegates, only me. Yeah. No open issues, no patches. Settings, appearance, system light dark, font size, increased. Shit. Okay. Notification badge. Announce changes. Code font, JetBrains Mono or system. Notify new versions. Okay. Well, there's Zig syntax highlighting. That's cool. Okay, so this allows you to have like a visual thing on about what's going on your system. I guess you could, in theory, connect also to other nodes that are not your local one, but it makes sense that at the very least this is the default. So yeah. Okay, what about the web thingy? What about the web thingy? They had somewhere in updates they were mentioning updates to radical HTTPD. Oh, it was mentioned somewhere. This is probably not the most efficient way of finding that information. I just thought that it was mentioned recently in there, so I don't know, maybe I forgot. There's a website at radical.network. Yeah, that makes sense. Although, I mean, I can check it out. Uh, explore radical TUI. Radical CI broker, by the way, that also is obviously important stuff. Um, there we go. Okay, Radical Explorer. So I thought it was called Radical HTTPD, but it's actually no, it's Radical Explorer. So let's take a look at what's this says. Also, you know what? Oh, there's a seed button. What happens if I press it? Oh, it tells me to do rad seed, or I can clone it, or I can just copy the link. So cloning is rad clone. Yeah, it's just the same thing. Oh, wait a second. Radical or Git? Huh. Or just straight up download. Okay, so Rosa exposes, I guess, the Git protocol over HTTPS. That's essentially where we were before. And Radical is the radical. So this is okay. That's cool. So if you essentially do this, you have information like you have the identifier that will allow you to grab the same repo from every possible node. That is cool. Okay, so delegates 1 to 3, 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3 delegates have to accept changes to be included in the canonical branch. Seeding scope all. This repository tracks changes by any peer. Oh, interesting. So by tracking changes from any peer, that means that they see issues from anybody. And then they will occasionally ban people. Okay, this everything is starting to fall into place. I'm starting to understand how it works. Um So maybe I can explain a little bit what my concern is here. So, um, one thing that we have been discussing occasionally in core team meetings has been, you know what, it would be cool to have a system for source control that allows you to essentially have a way to store issues inside of Git. But to have issues stored inside of Git, one pretty big branch in your um, cogs um, is that, well, that kind of implies at a surface level, it kind of implies that you're giving right access to random people. How do you square this stuff? Not having to give them like an account, but then having the ability to have these issues available when you're offline. And what Radical does is that everybody, when you make an issue, you publish it on your own copy of the repository, and then other people can set their other nodes can set what their scope, what it is that they want to care about. So in this case, with this configuration, it means that if I clone this repo, actually I think that I would have not just to clone it, I think that I would have to seed it. If I seed this repo and I add an issue, then they will willingly collect my issue and show it up here. But there is one setting. If instead you don't want this setting, in the case of Zig, we wouldn't want this because, actually, you know what? Maybe this could be a starting point. I have no idea. But if you want to be protected against spam issues and you don't even want any possible issue, you do want to put a filter of some kind, then what you do is that you change the seeding scope to be a list of seeds of your repository that you want to follow, and then only those will end up showing up in this UI. Or I guess most importantly, only those will end up showing up on your nodes list of issues. Source 3. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't know. That seems cool. Let's increase the font size. And the same is true for PRs. And there are 7 CI checks. And CI is running on github.com. Huh. Interesting. What am I looking at? Am I looking at a specific comment right now? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this seems cool. So you probably wouldn't want to run the Radical Explorer on your machine because actually, sorry. I wanted to do this thing. I wanted to read the README. I haven't done it yet. So this user interface lets you interact with Radical peer-to-peer. Yeah, publishing directly on your browser. Blah blah blah. The Radical team maintains a public instance at radical.network. Local first, run the UI locally, but they have the desktop version now, which is probably less clunky to run locally. Self-hosting, deploy the UI on your own server. Right. Oh, I think I see what the problem is. Wait a second. So this is just listing these guys. Oh, these are the pin repositories. But then they have all. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. And yeah, this is okay. Let's undo this. How do you navigate to the thing? Is the ID? Yeah. Okay, so show me the ID for Zine. So that means that if I copy this and I put it here, it should work. There we go. What do you know? This is Zine. And they have set There are 7 seeds already. Okay. And so they have set their node to show everything. So their node is essentially trying to provide a global view. And I mean, huh. I guess it's their choice. They can do whatever they want, obviously. But that doesn't mean that that is what we want to do necessarily. So what we could do if we wanted to is we set up our own node, we set up our own instance of the web UI, and we configure that web UI to only follow a subset of everything. And then what we could do is occasionally like we look at this to see what is out there, and then one as part of the triaging process, you find if somebody opens a good issue, let's say, you start following them, and so you upgrade the issue to the other view in a sense. um I feel I'm probably not understanding everything, but so far what I do understand uh seems very reasonable and straightforward. I mean, setting aside the fact that there's like, there's a gossip protocol going on, there's like all the network or the peer-to-peer network stuff that I'm not being fully aware of, and like it's just happening behind the scenes in an automagic way, and I'm just enjoying the end result. But setting that aside a little bit, um in terms of like what the usage patterns end up being, this really seems pretty reasonable. I really thought you guys would move to this instead of Codeberg when you announced moving off of Discord. Um, I think that when we're having the discussion, we just wanted to scratch our itch very fast and try to get off of this GitHub. Sorry, maybe I said Discord earlier for some reason. I don't know. In any case, we moved off of GitHub. We wanted to move off of GitHub fast, and obviously, opting into something like Radical is a big jump. I mean, it's not like, oh, you do it and then you don't like it and then your fact doesn't work that way, right? You can always roll back whatever decision you make. Sure, people are not going to be happy if you tiptoe too much. I'm confident that people will have a lot of opinions if we decide to move from Codeberg to Radical. But in any case, we wanted to make sure that we moved towards a better direction. And Codeberg is easier to understand. But in the meantime, we spend more time looking into other options. And well, you know what? I cannot speak for the others, but I can speak for myself. For myself, somewhat recently, I spent more effort trying to understand, the IDs, AT Proto, and this entire space, and also thanks to the introspection work, if you will, that we have done when we decided to move to Codeberg, or rather when we decided to move off of GitHub, which meant understanding what are our priorities, what we care more or less about. Keep with that knowledge, Radical seems very, very on point with what it's trying to achieve. Like really very on point. And I say this as somebody who is generally skeptical of federation and peer-to-peer. I said this earlier, I'll say it again. I don't like peer-to-peer and federation stuff because to me it's clunkiness, complexity, annoyance, and it can be worth it if you leverage the peer-to-peer nature well enough, like if you have a return of investment, if you will. And I don't see that being always the case. In my mind, personally, I feel like that, for example, Mastodon, I mean, yes, I'm not saying that Mastodon is necessarily like super bad, but to me, it's more, it's not really fully worth it for me personally. I prefer, I think, on a technical level, what Blue Sky is doing rather than Mastodon. But in the case of Radical specifically, this all seems to make a lot of sense, especially for the Zig ecosystem. Actually, I would say it's more easy to understand, to see this for the Zig ecosystem, but I think it is actually universally effective what they are trying to do for everybody, not just Zig. But in Zig, it's easier to see. Are you still thinking that you can move to a Webo by the end of the year? About that, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, there has been a big hiatus in the meantime. I will return to a Webo though soon. I'm pretty much done with this development cycle of Zine. So we're coming back, and who knows? I would say it's still in the cards. So I mean, what can I say? This is cool. DC doesn't have the search backend enabled, so repository search is unavailable. Okay. Here's another interesting thing. This is read only. All of this is read only. That actually makes this whole website also easier to host, because it's less resource hungry than it would be otherwise. Like, man, so far this seems awesome. Really, this seems awesome. I don't know any Zig, but I really want to learn. Is the best path to look for beginner-friendly issues? I'm currently a web dev and I want to get into systems programming. No, I would say that the best path is not to look at beginner-friendly issues. I'm assuming you mean on the Zig repository itself. I would say that is not the best way, because the beginner-friendly issues in the Zig compiler repository itself, they are issues that are good if you're not if you don't know the Zig code base yet. So are issues that you can tackle even without having deep knowledge of the Zig compiler code base. That does not mean that they are good for beginners of the language or beginners of systems programming. So here are my recommendations. One, go to the official Zig website, go to the Learn section, read the language reference, take a look at the standard library documentation. Down here, there's also online learning resources. Check them out. There's a free book. There's Zig.guide. There's Ziglings. Ziglings, I would actually recommend to start with Ziglings, because they teach you the language and a little bit of systems programming in a very tame way. Then my second recommendation would be join a community. Make sure that you are part of a community where you can have people help you if you get stuck and you don't understand something. Related to this, I would also say go to zig.day and check out if you have a Zig Day near you. If you have one near you, try to attend it when there's a Zig Day. That's also a nice way of meeting other Zig developers, learning systems programming, getting inspired also, and just having a day where you have like a good time. The Zig Days are the staple Zig meetup for Zig, but they're not like 2-hour-long events that run at the end of the day where you listen to a couple talks and that's it. Zig Days are full-day events. They run on a weekend, and you get there in the morning, you bring your laptop, and you do collaborative programming with other people. So they are really cool for that. The last piece of advice that I have is try to do a project that is not something that you're already comfortable with, meaning you're a web dev. So you know how to make a web service. Like, you probably know very easily how to spin up, I don't know, JavaScript, TypeScript, Go or something, and, have a web server that listens to routes and replies with HTTP. Don't attempt to do that with Zig, because you will get only frustrated. You know that problem space really well. You do not know the language. You do not know all the systems programming concerns. So something that you are used to thinking of being very easy is not going to be easy for you, and you will feel this impedance mismatch. So do something new that you've never done before. For example, there's ray tracing in a weekend. Ray tracing in one weekend. You probably never done this. I don't know for sure, but let's say that you have never done this. This is a good thing to attempt to do while you're learning Zig. It's a prepackaged experience, so there is very low chances of you getting stuck. You can find also online people that have done this. The book, by the way, will give you C++ examples. You will have to translate them to Zig, but in a sense, that's going to be something good. Like, it's going to be a way for you to learn the language. And in the meantime, you will learn something new and you will not feel frustrated because, oh man, it's something that in theory you should know how to do trivially and now it requires effort. You can get back to doing web dev stuff trivially in Zig as well, but first you need to climb the systems programming ladder before you can get back there. So this is one. Another one is crafting interpreters. This one everybody knows about, right? This one I believe makes you do things in Java and then maybe C or something like this. Just do it in Zig. That's my recommendation. Another one is operating system. This one is something that I did. Operating system in 1,000 lines. Operating system in 1,000 lines. This one is also cool. This one is a little bit fiddly. So if you don't love bit fiddling, this might be a little bit tough. But if you're motivated enough, like if you really think, oh my god, you know what, it would be super cool if I made my own super bare bone kernel. This would do it. It's 1,000 lines. Like it's not even that many lines. But they are. Some of them are tough lines, though. Be aware. So yeah, that's the idea. Doesn't even have to be one of these things. Like these are prepackaged solutions, so they prepackaged experiences. So they obviously have something nice about them because of that, but they are definitely not the only way of doing it. So these are my recommendations. Cool to see that Zini is now in beta. Yeah, go for it, man. This is a good time. We're not yet at the stage where all the features are implemented. There are some more things that I want to add, like some big things that I want to add. But for a personal blog is totally doable, I think. Are there any Italian Zig community members? What's the endonym for Zig programmers? The endonym is Ziguanas. It's like Zig plus iguana, Ziguana. Yeah, there's a couple of Zig days in Italy. Like it's nice, it's fine. The Milan one is the bigger one, I think. It varies, but the people that come to Milan events tend to be between 16 to, we had 40 people also at some of those events. The 40 people is like the upper extreme. That is not the average. The average is probably something around the 20 people. But in any case, they're good. Naples only ran once, and it was pretty big. I think it was between 30 and 40, if I remember correctly. But it was also the first time that it ran. Andrew was there, so it was kind of a special event. But when they are gonna organize it next, I will try to go there. There's also the one in Germany in Nuremberg that has a bunch of people going there pretty frequently. Nice. Good job, Capybara Dev. Chances are that you're gonna have a good time. Okay, I mean, so far so good for Radical. What would I want to do next at this point? Here's one thing that we're missing. Right now, when you specify a dependency in the Zig package system, you have to specify either a HTTP URL to a archive or an HTTP URL to Git. Maybe you can do also Git over SSH. I'm not sure. I don't remember if we have support for that. But I think one next maybe big but also easy. Well, easy. I don't know. We'll see. But in any case, like reasonably scoped step would be asking the question of what would it take to add Radical support to the Zig package system, the package manager. I mean, it's not a hard necessity, right? Actually, there's a link. Where's my? Oh, there we go. It's this button. So, because in any case, stuff that is hosted on Radical, as long as the Rosa node is online and it is serving the Git protocol over HTTP, then you can use anything that is on the Radical network trivially. But obviously, you would want to support this. Didn't Zig want to do something with torrenting packages? Yes, Andrew had that idea in mind. I was never really fully convinced 100%. Or rather, let me put it this way. If you think about it, I think that what Radical is doing is a superior way of having Zig torrenting packages. Because like the problem of software of like source availability, like making source code available, is not just a concern in the package manager. It's a concern that is like more general than just that. Like even one having the ability to clone a repository is something that you worry about. And I personally think that Radical is a better solution. Is a better poised solution. Like it's better poised to provide a good solution for this problem than the Zig package manager or like the Zig executable would be. That said, that's my opinion. I don't understand everything. I might change my mind, so don't take everything with a grain of salt. But I find let me put it this way. I think that if we were to more seriously adopt Radical in the Zig ecosystem, you wouldn't need to torrent your packages because you would do that through a Radical seed in a way that, in my opinion, is more sane, significantly more sane than torrenting. How would you know who's the original source of truth developer of a package? Just look at the ID. Yes, the Radical ID has also in it the concept of who is the. They have this concept of delegates where they have the concept of having more than one owner of a repository, but at its core, you have one delegate, which is you, the author, and you are the ultimate authority of what is really on that repository or not. And other nodes are not. There's cryptography involved, so other nodes are not allowed. Don't have the ability to falsify what's on your branches. Yeah. So I think that for me, what would be my next step? Maybe try to put more stuff on Radical. I think that really the next step, not just for me personally, but as trying to see, as trying to really be able to make use of this tool, would be to really add support for the Radical protocol to the Zig package manager. And I guess you could do it in a more cheaty way, if you will, because I mean, if you get a rod thingy, then worst case, you can just do this. You turn those URLs into this. But yeah, fetching is outside the compiler. It is indeed, isn't it? But it would be cool if the package manager was not hard coded to work on that one. Probably public, probably like meant to always be their instance. But it would obviously be a better solution if it understood how to speak with the rest of the peer-to-peer network. Although it might be possible that you're only allowed to chat with the peer-to-peer network if you are a node in the peer-to-peer network. So in that case, that would be a problem because it means that you will only be able to use the other system if you have a local node running. And then it would be less self-contained than what Zig generally tries to be. So I don't know. I mean, so far so good though. Rad issue assign. Add or delete assignees from issue. Cache. Recache all issues that can be found in radical storage. Comment. Add a comment to an issue. Edit the title and description of an issue. Delete an issue. Add or delete labels from an issue. List issues, optionally filtering them. Open a new issue. React. Add a reaction emoji to an issue or comment. Show a specific issue. State. Transition the state of an issue. Hmm. I wish you could supply an alternative URL for dependencies so that as long as the package is fetched from the alt URL has the same hash and works as opposed to fork. Yeah, well, fork is a completely different system. Fork is essentially a local development tool. So just think the reason why fork is just a CLI command and it's not something that you can hardcode in your zone file is literally because it's just for local development. As for the other point, yeah, that you're absolutely right. It would be cool, although in the case of Radical specifically, that is the one case where you don't need that because with Radical, if you can chat with the peer-to-peer network one way or another, then all you need is the repository ID, and then if anybody on the network has it, you will know. And I would say even more interestingly, and I think this is like one key piece of the puzzle. If you are downloading Zine from my network, from my node, I will seed all my dependencies. It's trivial that you want to seed from your node all your dependencies, whether you made them or not. Like you can seed from your node also other people's repositories. So I would want to seed all my dependencies, and so that means that if you were able to clone Zine, then it is guaranteed. Well, I mean, if you were able to clone Zine from my node, then it is guaranteed that you will be able to access also all its dependencies because my node will also be able to serve those. With Radical, you would need to specify the RID as the URL. Yes, that's what you want to do. I mean, this thing here, yeah, that is a thing that you can do, but this is not optimal. Like this would allow you today to make use of repositories hosted in the Radical network from the outside. Um, but this is obviously not the optimal path. This is the optimal path. So yeah, this is still affected. Like if Rosa goes down, then you're fucked. Yeah, but you wouldn't want to do this. Like if we add support for Radical, I mean, I did mention that you could, in theory, as a stopgap, cheat and turn the RID into this type of link. But yeah, that's not what you want to do. You want to properly gossip. Gossip. I mean, you want to properly chat with the peer-to-peer network and learn where this thing is available. I mean, I don't know. This seems cool to me. This really seems cool. Okay, so you know what? I think this was it for me today. Um, I'm sorry I started late. Is because I was having I needed to do some calls before I could turn on the stream, and those took a while. But yeah, um, Radical seems cool. I will say though, one big issue that I'm seeing right now is that if I want to um like bring my laptop into the mix, then my laptop needs to be a second user because there is no same user with two nodes. And so my laptop would essentially have to become a second delegate. That's kind of jank. But I mean, but it is feasible. Like, I guess you can do it. I hope that you can tweak these values and like roll them back. Um, and they're not like write only or something like that. Um, but yeah, yeah, it is sad, but it's not a deal breaker, right? I believe. Like, I believe that it is still something that you can, you can make do. That's my point. I don't see this being a hard blocker. Yeah, there is the fact that you don't have key rotation and whatnot. That's yeah, that comes with its own set of downsides. I guess for you, key rotating would be creating a new user, kicking out, adding it, and then kicking out the old user, and now there's a new user. I mean, it's still kind of you, but it's a new user. I would say though, what do people look like when they write an issue? Like, for example, show me the pin nodes which hopefully have issues. This one has an issue. There's an avatar that is, oh, interesting. There's a DID. There's an SSH key. There's a SSH hash. But there is no concept of avatar, and there is just a name. So like, there's no even an email to. I guess you have that in the commits. Huh. Show me something more with more issues, more activity. This one. I wonder what this is. What is this that doesn't load? I guess it's the list of their activity. Issue with a comment. Okay. Huh. Okay. Well, I don't know. This is what I have so far. We'll see. Thank you all for hanging out. I hope you had a good time. I will see you all next time.